Kalani, good afternoon to you. SARS collecting the highest tax revenue in its history. Collections going past 2 trillion rand for the last financial year.
This is quite good. This is really a good performance by the South African Revenue Service. It says it collected 2 trillion rand and 76 billion rands before it paid out 381.1 billion rands in refunds in the financial year that ended at the end of March. The taxman says after the payment of refunds, the actual revenue collected stands at just over 1.6 trillion rands. Personal income tax continued to be the main contributor to revenue at 601.7 billion rands. Tariffs collected through customs recorded just over a 27% growth, while corporate income tax and value-added tax contributed 348 billion rand and 422.2 billion rands, respectively. Our business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo caught up with the SARS Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, about this record-breaking tax revenue collection.
You saw an increase in both the revenue collected as well as the refunds paid back to South Africans. Could you just talk us through some of the numbers that you did present today?
Sure. I think the first is that personal income taxes, taxes from individuals, is still the largest contributor to revenue. Secondly, what is important is whilst there has been an adverse impact by load shedding and other economic challenges, the focused revenue collection and administration effort by SARS have ensured we have crossed a historic milestone to collect over 2 trillion rands of revenue for the first time in our history. Of course, you saw 60 billion rand more refunds were paid out, which means that the net number is affected by that, but it's still 99.7% of the revenue that the challenge the minister set for us just 6 weeks ago, and 123 billion rand more than what we collected last year. On the refunds, why that is a positive story is that it keeps money flowing back into the economy, and especially important when businesses are struggling, when individuals are cash-strapped. Every time the inflation rises, which is a necessary phenomena, then middle income and young families who are already indebted by a car or a house, their income is eroded. So the ability to recycle money through the refund system back into the system is in fact good news, and the fact that that has grown by over 18% is a positive story. So if you bring on balance the impact that SARS has had both on the South African economy through a much better than expected revenue outflow, refund outflow, whilst ensuring that government's program is well funded, that balance for me is the real good news story. But also it is evidence of how a well-functioning revenue administration, an organization such as SARS, is so integral to the social fiber, the economic and psychological and spiritual and emotional well-being of South Africans. And that's really the higher purpose of our work.
Now, when we look across board, we did see improved compliance. Could you tell us a little bit about your compliance program, but also some of the risks, specifically when it comes to the refunds, that you are still concerned about?
So what we mean by our compliance program is every taxpayer or every South African or business person or someone who lives in South Africa who conducts businesses are firstly required to register for the respective tax products. Secondly, for those products that they have registered for, they should be submitting returns or declarations of their income and expenses. Thirdly, to the extent that that produces an amount that is payable to SARS, that those amounts are paid. and when there's a dispute between SARS and the individual, that those disputes are resolved through the legal mechanisms. So those are the 4 stages of our work: registration, filing, payment, and dispute resolutions. Non-compliance occurs when a taxpayer or a non-taxpayer does not fulfill the obligations as required in law. How do we become aware of this? We use increasingly data science, third-party information sources, and declarations by taxpayer to profile every taxpayer, every South African, for the risk that they represent to the fiscus. Once they are profiled, they are then selected through our very sophisticated case selection methodology. And when they are selected, SARS begins an engagement with them. That engagement may be anything as a simple reminder: please, sir, submit your return, or please, ma'am, you have submitted a return, but we see a discrepancy between what you have declared as income or expenses and what we think you should have. Do you want to give us more information? And based on the information, we can reconcile your tax affair. Or you have not disputed that you owe SARS money. Can you now please pay that money? And so one of the examples is that we have completed a large volume of outstanding debt cases that amounted to 77 billion rand that we have showed. We've collected a large number of outstanding returns, and that have added some. So this is what we mean by overall compliance work, and specifically the instances that I've referred to.
Thank you so much for those insights. I'm sure through the day we will be digging into those numbers a little bit more. Of course, that was the South African Revenue Services Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, just taking us through the announcement today made on the collections or revenue collections for the 2022-2023 period. And of course, they are hitting the ground running to meet targets for next year's revenue collection. For Newzroom Afrika on channel 405, I'm Ntokozo Khumalo in Pretoria.